So if there's something that I was definitely going to notice was the changes to the charge blade, especially since there is this one change that has become rather controversial. For those who enjoy the charge blade and tried it in the beta, you might already know by now that in order to do our signature move, the SAED, there's now a few more steps that we have to take, at least from neutral. If you want to go into an SAED, you first have to do an AED and then SAED as a follow-up. Fine, I thought. Capcom wants this move to be more impactful whenever it is used, so by limiting when you can use it, people can value its execution a bit more. But man, there's some people that are quite mad with this change, so let's dive into what I believe is the state of the weapon. So the whole thing about the change to how we perform SAED is that there were a lot of people that liked spamming this move as their main source of damage whenever they played Charge Blade. And obviously, this is to be expected. The move looks amazing, it is satisfying to land, and it hits quite hard most of the time. However, the general impression that we were left with after the beta is that, in Wilds, Savage Axe is going to be vastly superior to SAED playstyle. My main problem with this assessment is that I don't think this is a fair conclusion to draw from two playstyles that have extremely different armor skills requirement, one being a lot more skill hungry than the other. I think people blew the whole no SAD from neutral thing a bit out of proportion. Like, the playstyle was not even viable anymore, but I don't think that is really true. If we look at the way that Charge Blade is played in Iceborne, for the most part, you use guard points or blocking to follow up with an SAD, something that is still present in Wilds. In fact, it seems that Capcom wants you to play SAD together with guard points and blocks, because it seemed to me that no matter how much knockback I got from blocking, I could always SAD if I wanted to. Add to this that Perfect Guard has almost no knockback, so you can punish even faster with this mechanic. The implication here is that the armor skill Guard might not be completely necessary in order to capitalize from this interaction, which can be very interesting to some people because it means that now you can make more room for other skills in an already skill-hungry build. But by far the best change to SAED is the way that it interacts with focus mode. The biggest downside of guard points in Iceborne is that you cannot really change your direction a lot after blocking. Your character will always SAED forwards after doing a guard point. However, in Wilds you can literally do a 180 after blocking thanks to focus mode. This is a huge buff, as it expands your options for guard point based gameplay a lot more. It makes positioning a bit more forgiving, but also a lot more rewarding when done well. That said, the moment I realized SAED was so reliant on armor skills was actually when I created a new character to do a full run of Iceborne using only the Charge Blade. I immediately felt the difference of not having all the improvements that come with things like focus, guard, capacity boost, artillery, etc. Like, not having focus alone made Charge Slash feel like it took forever to reach the sweet spot, and I would constantly mess up my timing because I was so used to it with focus. This also made charging files an ordeal, because you have to spam Charge Slash a lot more before the files turn red. So I kinda defaulted into Savage Axe because it is easier to get going and its benefits last longer. Once you have a full set of files, you can just pizza cut your way through most of the hunt. And I think something similar happened to most people in the beta. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about this game. In fact, as I've said before in other videos, I'm one of the summer children that came to the series with World. But for reference, there's this table made by the speedrunner Jussi showing the values for all the different moves in the beta. I highly recommend you guys check that video. Jussi's perspective is usually quite objective, and he tries his best to be as empirical as possible with his arguments. He even gives a full breakdown of the information, so go watch the video or give him a sub. In summary, at least in the beta, Wild's Charge Blade favors Savage Axe by a considerable margin over SAED. Even with this data, I think there's still a case to be made for SAED being viable. If you follow the trend that's been present in early Iceborne or early Sunbreak, you'll notice that Savage Axe tends to pull ahead when it comes to performance. Like, you get a few crit bonuses and attack boosts and you're good to go. it is not only after you reach the endgame content that SAED playstyle can start to shine more, especially with the increased values to elemental damage and elemental builds. So it's not crazy to think that this might happen in Wilds as well. Even without considering elemental builds, the impact that armor skills have on your ability to cycle SAED more frequently in a hunt is really needed to start feeling like the build is at least solid. And I think this is an important point that has to be made. At the end of the day, Savage Axe might be the strongest build in the first version of the game, but I really think that SAED will be performing at least, very close to Savage Axe. If the build is viable and it yields results, I don't think people should worry too much about this playstyle becoming extinct. And actually, I think that is very far from happening. There is this general idea in the community that Chargeblade now has mainly two playstyles. With how the moveset works in Wilds, people are regarding AED 1 and 2 to be part of the Savage Axe playstyle. But isn't that supposed to be part of the SAED side of the weapon? Like, if you look at SAED gameplay, a big part of being a bit more optimal is knowing when to go for an AED because you won't have enough time for a full SAED to go off. I think it is safe to say that the actual main protagonist of the weapon now is AED 1 and 2. And to use those moves, you don't really need Savage Axe. Like, sure, activating Savage Axe will give you a damage increase, but the hardest hitting moves are still going to be AED 1 and 2, which again, in my opinion, are moves that belong to the SAED playstyle. You know, going for long commitment moves that do a lot of damage and have the potential to stun or stagger the monster. So in a way, I think there needs to be a bit more nuance when people address this topic. For example, another concern that some people have is that this version of Chargeblade will have no room for SNS gameplay, which, like, what do you even mean by that? Like, the one specific example I've seen of SNS tech is the overheated charged sword rotation, which can actually pull some surprising numbers on elemental builds. But I guess the concern is that now you won't be using the tools available to you on SNS mode because Axe is supposedly so much better. Who said that you have to run around in Axe mode all the time? It sounds to me that this is impractical even. Like, there's a reason why Morph/ exists, so that you can have smooth transitions between one mode and the other. Hell, isn't it nice to have a guard point when going from Axe to SNS? Isn't that a great interaction to make more room for SAED plays? Anyway, my final impression is that now you have a weapon that is able to jump from one aspect of its identity to another quite easily. If there's ever been a version of the Chargeblade that can combine different playstyles, it's this one in Wilds. Because thanks to the new file economy that we get from spending half a file during Savage Axe, we don't have to worry about spending too many files before going into an SAED. And the best part is that you can spend all your files and Savage Axe will still be active, something that in previous games didn't happen. In Iceborne, spending your files meant losing Savage Axe, and in Risebreak, you lose Savage Axe if you go into SNS. Also, the fact that you can perform actions after AED is huge. The previous animation had you stuck there forever going back into SNS. So if anything, it seems to me that Capcom really wants to give people a weapon where you can allow yourself some freestyle to really combine all the different aspects of its identity during a hunt, and balancing the way you access the different moves so that everything gets its chance to shine. And that is damn good game design. Lastly, I want to indulge in a bit of copium. I think there's one very simple way to make SAED quite solid in Wilds, and that would be with a skill similar to capacity boost or loaded shells. I don't know much about the other Monster Hunter games, but I've noticed that the skills available for Chargeblade in order to better manage and charge your files have been constantly evolving. For example, in Iceborne you had things like capacity boost, and you would combine that with focus to accelerate your file generation and efficiency. In Risebreak, the skill loaded shells made it so that you can load all your files by simply charging them to yellow, which had even better synergy with focus. So if there's something that I'd really like to see, is some sort of endgame skill, maybe a unique armor skill that would allow you to load red files and they instantly become overcharged. So it would be like an evolution of the skill loaded shells. Something like that would be bound to improve SAED and make it a lot more appealing. So anyways, thanks again for hearing me yap again. I hope this video was insightful to CV enjoyers out there. Let me know what you think or how are you feeling about the weapon in the comments, because I do like reading and replying to those. As always, my name is Sun, and until next time.